this evening. Welcome to the April Columbus Section Dinner. Hope you're enjoying your meal. I did want to let you all know that we have selected a theme for the fall conference. Our theme will be Quality Quest, a Journey to Excellence. If you are interested in assisting with the planning, our next meeting is April 17th at 4:30 in the Teams meeting. If you would like me to send you an invite, just catch me after this meeting. The next dinner meeting is May 13th. I will not be here, but please come. Tonight we have Tony Belilovskiy, who is going to be presenting to us. Looking at his background, basically, he's a Renaissance man and does it all. Am I wrong? Yeah, he's got all kinds of stuff, as well as being a classical pianist. So, I mean, I'm just looking at this going, I don't read everything, but you read everything when you skip everything, and you say, he does it all. He just does it all. So let's give welcome to Tony and see what he has to say.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Many familiar faces here in the room. Some of the faces I presented here multiple times over the course of last 5, 6, 7 years. Something like that. On various topics. So this particular topic that we're going to be talking about today, I don't believe I ever presented here. So this, as you can see, some of the slides, this is the Sigma conference. This topic was supposed to be presented in February, but my colleague decided otherwise, so it was not presented. Some of the slides for you who have seen me talk, there will be a few slides that are similar, but I am not going to be writing on the slides. I'm going to be just quickly chatting about them. And 99%, 95% of this presentation, even if you've heard me speak before, is so. Also another announcement, and I asked Dr. Bill about it, and he said, just let you know. As you can see, it says with and without surveys. The original topic is just measuring community. I included surveys, and because of that, there are 6 extra slides, so we may run about 10 minutes over time. If you guys can't do it, just get up and leave, but we're probably going to go about 10 minutes. Okay, so these are the objectives for today. Interesting. Again, these slides were created specifically for Lean Six Sigma conference, so all of my companies in Sigma has been struck away. My company is called C3 Excellence. C3 stands for Customer Centered Culture. And that is the name that was not that we didn't come up with, but it was the customers who gave us the name. The original name of the company is INT. But about 10 years ago, the company was regretted. The company is about 7 years old. I took over the company about 5 years ago, but I did the company for many years. So let's start with basics. How come product and profits?
Yeah, it's got the microphone.
Why we're doing it, what are we doing, and how we're doing it. We're going to come back to our product and process in a minute, but I want to start with the personal story and how it will relate to this stuff. When I was 12 years old, I sustained an injury. It was a ski accident back in Soviet Union. I was born and raised in Ukraine, and I didn't. But when I was 12, I sustained an injury. The healthcare was not necessarily very quick to react. I was placed in cast. It was up in the northern part of the country. When I was taking a train ride home, the gas station pretty much went into my pants on the hospital. So, that was the end of my life. I was 12, I healed very quickly, but I went to the doctor with this, they told me acne and my patella was broken out. So other than a scar, I have nothing, no issues, my knee was fine. 10 years later, I started getting I went to the doctor said, "Hey, do some physical therapy, I did some physical therapy, you can do it." Okay. 10 years later, right hip starts hurting. Again, I go to the doctor says, do some physical therapy, do some physical therapy. Hip stops hurting. For another 10 years, now I'm 42. My knee and the hip are now painful to the point where I can't walk. I can't walk up and down the stairs. I can't do any normal activity of living. I go to the doctor says, "Oh, it's your knee, we're gonna operate." And what are you gonna do? Well, we're just gonna fix it up and wait a second, how are you gonna do it without doing an MRI? Oh, I don't need an MRI, I know what's wrong. Okay, that's okay. My wife is a nurse practitioner. She was a physician in Saudi Arabia. She was a nurse practitioner here. So obviously, when I came home and told her this, that I'm scheduled for surgery, she was like, "Hey, you ain't getting surgery. They're getting an MRI." So I got an MRI. MRI showed something very interesting. Both meniscus in the knee are gone. They've been gone since I was 12. The ACL is strained, one of the ligaments, and severe arthritis. So the doctor that ordered an MRI said, "Well, we need a knee replacement." I'm 42 years old. We need a knee replacement. The sooner the better. And the sooner you're gonna go for it, the better it's gonna be for you. So okay, now we start talking about knee replacement. We start talking about different implants. We start talking about, and I'm asking, what are the measures? How are you gonna measure that the knee replacement is successful? They say, well, 12 weeks after surgery, you have no pain, and your knee bends at 60 degrees. I talked to one surgeon, he gave me the same thing. I talked to another surgeon, they tell me the same thing. I talked to a third surgeon, they don't tell me the same thing. I live in a small town, I live in Sarasota, Florida. It's at that time, it was not, right now it's exploded. That's 5 years. But before that, it was a small town, everybody knows each other, especially the medical community. So I go to 3 different doctors tell me exactly the same thing. And it pisses me off. And the only reason why it pisses me off is because nobody ever asked me a simple question. What are your outcomes from this surgery? So let me tell you my background a little. I'm a boxer. I've boxed for 15 years by now. I go to gym regularly. And my outcome is, I want to continue boxing. After I get the surgery, I want to continue boxing. 60-degree bend in my knee is not acceptable. It needs to be a 90 degrees. So I voiced that to the surgeon. All of a sudden, the conversation changes. All of a sudden, we're talking about different types of implants that are available. Why? Because there are implants that are available for the athletes. There are implants that are available for specific impact sports. They are not covered by your insurance. Or rather, they will be covered by insurance up to the cost of the original implant. The rest is my out-of-pocket responsibility. Okay, I'm willing to pay for it. But let's talk about what I want, not what you want. So how does that relate to how, what, and that? When I started talking to the doctors, what they were talking about is, why am I doing the implant? I want to be pain free. Nobody asked me, they assume that I want to be pain free. That's why I am doing surgery. How they are going to evaluate that I'm pain free? by using the standard guidelines that were put out by Center Medicare and Medicaid. That was saying 12 weeks after surgery pain-free, 60-degree bend at the knee. You are successful. You are successful. So if we look at it from a different prism, if we will look at it from the prism of what is the measures that were offered by the doctors? Standard measures. Why? Because that's how doctors define success. How they would measure that success? They will send you a survey. And no matter how I answer the survey, it's still going to be good for them because the way the questions are asked in the survey, no matter what you say, they are. I have some examples of the surveys. I don't have this presentation, but we don't have that much time. But just to give you an example, in a restaurant, they gave a survey and they said how was the quality of food, and it was excellent, good. It was translated from German, so the gradation stopped at satisfactory. There was nothing below satisfactory. So no matter what you answer, you hit it. So the medical survey is usually this. Now, if you flip it, and what should have happened if they would have heard this presentation? The question should have been asked: what would the measures of success that I can box 12 weeks after with no? And then they need to the degree that I need to. Why do they care? Because I would be rating about that particular doctor. I would put it on any kind of social media. I would write a Yelp review. I would write an Outbrain review. I would write anything. Sarasota, believe it or not, has a large community of circus artists that get injured. Sarasota is the circus town. It's the only circus school in the country. And it's the only full-time circus available in the United States. It's a headquarters of Barnum and Bailey Circus and Ringling Brothers. And how my success will be measured? Hopefully by a follow-up phone call, hopefully by a direct conversation, not necessarily this paper that will be sent. So, if we look at these three words in a little bit bigger context, and for those who heard me speak before, we'll recognize this. So, we're talking about process, product, and outcome. If I would have 100 people from quality world in the room, and I will ask you, what do you do at work all the time, what your work consists of, we will say the word process. The question is, which process is that? Is that the producer process or the customer process? Producer process below the line, customer process above the line. Well, we are wrapped up in a dimension number 8, which is the producer process, because that's where we do that's where all our improvement technologies are. But what about the other dimensions? Let's look at them very quickly. I'm not going to spend time on this. I can spend 2 hours with this diagram, but we're going to do it in 40 seconds. Dimension number 8, we talked about. Dimension number 7, product characteristics. We can recite them in our sleep, the products that we are personally producing or the products that our company is producing. We know exactly what we're producing. So you got you're producing cameras, you know exactly how many megapixels they are, you know exactly what zoom is and quality and whatever. If my mother buys a camera, all she cares, does it take nice pictures? Yes? Okay, good. She doesn't care about the zoom, she doesn't care about pixels. She just cares about nice pictures. Number 6 and number 5. Producer desired outcomes, producer undesired outcomes. We know them for a fact. What do we want? We want profit. We want market share. We want brand recognition. What we don't want? We don't want reward. We don't want warranty returns. Right? And believe it or not, dimension number 6 and dimension number 2 are the only ones that they align together. Because customers also don't want returns. They buy the product not to return it. Just like Walmart that has the customer satisfaction policy that says we will gladly refund or return any product that you purchase with us within the last 30 days. Is that customer satisfaction policy or customer research? So, dimension number 1, customers' desired outcomes. What do customers actually do? Why do they buy our product? What are they trying to achieve by using our products? That is the most important dimension. That is what was not addressed when we were talking about the need. What was my desired outcome by using the product? It's an implant. What are the outcomes and why? Dimension number 3, product characteristics. As I said, if my mother is buying a camera, she's 84 years old. She doesn't care how many megapixels are there because she has no idea what those are. And finally, product acquisition process. Pay very close attention because they will get us in the end. Just remember dimension number 3. I'm giving you it. Product acquisition. How easy is it to implement? You're buying a software. It says it's easy to use. You press the button. In the next 2 hours, you're ready to kill somebody who developed that thing, and it's still not user-friendly. It's still not used. You give up. Dimension. Okay. Anything that we have above the dotted line is called voice of the customer or customer experience. Two very, very different things. We a lot of times substitute one for another. Do not do this. Voice of the customer, the customers really want when they buy our products. Customer experience is what they get when they buy our products. We hope it's the same thing, but it may not be. Anything on the bottom is producer desired outcomes. What we want when we work in the workplace. So in order for us to be successful as a company, we actually we need to listen to those signs. We can't blindly follow the customer desired outcomes because we still have business to run. So there are some business decisions that we need to be made. That customers want this, well, I'm sorry, but the business decisions maybe next. Because again, we are running a business. So we need to help them. People actually lives. Okay, let's dive into measurement. Why should we measure something? Why do we even bother? We measure what the value. Do we measure profit? Oh yes. Oh yes. Do we measure productivity? Oh yes. Do we measure customer satisfaction? Say we do, but do we? But we value it. But we don't measure it. It removes ambiguity. If we have the measure, if we have the hard numbers, we can't argue with them. We got the numbers. We can define success because a lot of times we say we are going to increase our production in the next quarter. Well, did we? Or did we not? When we have hard numbers, when we have hard measurements, we define success. In order for us to focus our behavior or our improvement goals, we need the numbers, we need the measures. We need to measure that matters. Okay. So, product is the only unambiguous thing in those 3 words: process, quality, and outcome. Product is the only defined and unambiguous thing. We think of product, we think of something tangible. We think of something that we can hold. Glass is a product. Liquor is a product. Piece of paper is a product. How many of you are producing glass paper or liquor? Of course. I bet not. But I bet you're producing the products here that you don't even think that they are products. Because all of us in this room are producing knowledge products. We produce reports, we produce manuals, we produce spreadsheets, we produce teaching, training curriculum, we produce audits. So we produce products, we don't think of them as products. So what is the product? There are 6 characteristics that absolutely have to be followed in order for us to put something in. So it has to be a noun that can be made plural with an S, can be given to somebody. Very specific to the producer, packaged in countable units, and has to be used to produce. Those are the characteristics of the product. So I challenge you for one day, when you come to work, to actually think of products. And how many products you would actually produce. And of those products that you produce, how many actually want to do? There is one product that every one of you produces in mass quantity that has the biggest dissatisfaction amongst every one of you. And we have no idea what the cost of that product is. We have no manual on how to create a good product, but yet we're all producing. Anybody care to guess what the product is? Emails. Email is the product. And if anybody is into leading, look at it. Okay, why are we talking about that? Because product, what will drive and measure? Because when we measure something, we measure a small. Because each product has 3 different types of users that could possibly be touching the product. Would be an end user. End user is a customer that actually using the product to produce an output, to get an output. So you bought a washing machine, you're washing your clothes, your outcome is clean clothes. Right? Same thing with product that you produced an audit report. Well, there will be an engineer or a foreman or somebody who will use that audit report to produce an output based on that report. So that group of users is not homogenized. They're very different. Just looking in this room, everyone had a product, a dinner. But just being in this room, we have women and men in this room. We probably have different relationship with that product because if you look at the plate of a man, it might be different than the plate of a woman. So we each have a different product. So we have to be very careful to differentiate the types of customers and end users and their role in that product. Brokers. Brokers are the customers that transfer the product from producer to the end user. Sometimes on behalf of the end user, sometimes on behalf of the producer. Sometimes on their own behalf because they make money. Think car dealerships. You can't go on, unless you're buying Tesla, you can't go and buy Toyota from a Toyota factory. You can't show up and say, hey, can I have the white one with the light interior? Because I would Toyota, and I want my hands to still be, my skin to be still on my hands when I get in the car in the summer. No, you can have a black one. But you have to go at the dealership and buy it. And because the dealer will pay what you will get in the dealership. And when my wife and I went to buy a car, the closest car that we didn't care about what's inside, we wanted white with light interior. The closest one was in Jacksonville, 5 hours. White. And finally, fixers. Fixers are the ones that have to fix, augment, or change the product on behalf of the end user in the product level. Those are the people that know in excruciating details what is wrong with the product and how to fix it and what needs to be fixed in the beginning so that doesn't happen. But nobody's talking to them. Why? Because usually those are the people who are for customer service. We call that 1-800 repairs line and say, fix it. They will fix it. They'll help you how to fix it. They will even enter all of your data and everything that was done into the system called Customer Relationship Management System. Anybody work with those systems? Huh? No? Well, I'll tell you there is one particular interesting fact about that system. That system knows everything. It's the smartest system in the whole company. Nobody can get anything out. Anybody can file into that system, but it takes a genius to retrieve anything. because of the rules, because nobody understands. So each of these types of customers have different expectations with the phone, and you have to keep that in mind. So when we try to measure something, or when we're talking to our customers, we need to always differentiate who are we talking to and what role do these type of customers play with our product. Because the same people may play different roles. They could be end users and the brokers. They could be fixers and end users. There could be multiple hats that each person is playing with that particular. So if we're talking about satisfaction, product satisfaction, because when we measure something, we need to understand what we're measuring. So let's talk about product satisfaction. If we take these three categories, performance, perception, and outcome about the product, think of yourself as a customer and what's something. What do you value the most? Most likely you will say outcome, because that's why you bought the product. You want to achieve something. So number one of the value that you value the most is the outcome. Then it's the perception about the product. And finally, it's the performance. Now, what do we actually measure? What do we know how? We definitely measure the performance. You know, we can kind of guess what the perception is. We have no idea how to outcomes because we don't even know what is happening. So how can we measure something if we don't know? Is there an issue here? So how do we? Okay. So vehicles for uncovering different ways of how can we uncover? As you can see, these are the various things that we can employ at our disposal to be able to understand what the customers actually. Going from the bottom to the top are things that are reactive. We create surveys, right? Because most likely something happened. Now we need to understand what happened. And as we go up, the things are getting more and more proactive. Things are getting more and more. Because once we cross the line of actually talking to the customers, or actually interacting with customers, that's what we get. That's what we get. And by the way, these slides are included, so you will have these things. Yes.
Yeah.
Popular vital lies. What are the vital lies? Vital lies are the reason why we tell ourselves why we can't do something. Kind of, not my department, sorry. We go to the supermarket and ask, thank you, okay. Oh, sorry, I don't know, not my department. That's right. So, the reasons why we say we can't measure something or we don't measure something is too difficult. It's not easy. Nobody said it's going to be easy. What is easy? We don't know how. That's more realistic. We don't know how. Well, we don't know. It takes too much time. Well, is it okay to produce a crappy product that nobody buys? Can you make time to actually figure out why? It costs too much. Really? What's more important? To increase your sales and maximize the profits, or skip on this and create a subpar product that somebody else will improve? There are too many measures. Yeah, everybody measures all sorts of financial things because that's what's driving, the salary and the compensation of the CEO. If it's driving the compensation of CEO, that will be measured number one. We already know we are doing very well. We don't need to do anything else. You know what is the way when you're on the top? The only way is that. So if you're on the top, you're gonna remain. Very, very important. It's not we don't know that way yet. It's what we know for a fact, but it ain't so. And that is directly related to them. We are on the top, we know we're good. About 10 years ago, for those of you who's been coming to these meetings for about more than 5 years, you probably heard Robin who spoke here a couple of times. He was on the Southwest flight. Southwest is confidential. He was sitting next to a woman. It was quite a turbulent flight, and the woman was not. And he started talking to her, and then she started talking. And she said, he asked her what she was doing. She said she's an author. And he said, oh, I'm an author too. What are you writing? And she said, I'm writing something. So we started talking about it, and we got talking to him. And he said, so how do you advise your women to measure their relationship? Or without a kind of numbers? And she said, oh, there is no such thing. You can't measure relationship. You can't do this. So in the course of the flight from Minnesota to Phoenix, they created 20 measures of how to measure the relationship that were published in that book. Literally, it just followed the thinker. So let's try to learn to think in the way that we can do this. So the measures of satisfaction. If we look at different priorities, remember how we said that we measure the customer's value outcome, but we can measure the performance. So when we list our priorities, we value the activity schedule standards, cost to produce, and volume. That's the traditional way that we measure things in our companies. When we talk to customers, this is what they want to know. They want to know ease of use. How easy is it to use this product? Timeliness. Again, timeliness is a very ambiguous thing. So we need to ask what is timely for you. For somebody, it could be days. For somebody, it could be seconds. Think about the evolution of communication. You put something in the mail, you put, like a stamp, drop it in the mail, 3 days later, somebody gets it. Can you imagine doing that with a document right now? We're doing it, it's been 5 seconds, I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah.
So if you talk about timeliness, you always have to clarify what is timely. Give me your measure of timeliness. Certainty. If I push that button, I want this thing on. I don't want another 3 buttons asking me, are you sure? Cost to own. Toyota Corolla is cheap to own versus BMW. We're not talking about initial price, we're talking about maintenance. If we compare Toyota Corolla and BMW, I'm sorry. Why would anybody go with German engineering? Just look at that. Just variety and choice. That's what counts. And we can coach your numbers. But be careful. So, what are the good measures? The good measures are aligned with strategic and customer priorities. Again, I have a 2-day workshop just for strategic and customer priorities. I can talk for 2 days about it. And I'm just doing it in 5 seconds. In order for us to measure something, we need to know what are the strategic priorities for both customers and the audience. Because we need to measure both sides. Operationally and personally relevant. You know, a lot of companies create measures that you, in your role and position, have nothing to do with, but yet you are judged by that measure. In reality, you do have something to do with it, you just don't know it, because either in the org chart or in the strategic plan, it's not outlined how your particular job description relates to that measure. And in some of the strategic plans that I do with the companies, we actually make sure that every single person in the company knows how their particular work is related to the strategic measures for the company. Because they have to know. Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you have no reason to do it. Easy to create and maintain, easy said and done, but really when you will see in the next 10 minutes, it's easy. You just need to do it. Unambiguously defined, again, avoid things like timely. When you say timely, you can drive a truck. Quick to construct, easy to understand. Yeah, anybody in the company should be able to read that and understand exactly what the next person is. Has to be unambiguous and easy to understand. Used for improvement, because if it's not used for improvement, it's a useless measure. Why have a measure? No sacred objects. If we have sacred objects in the company, we do not show them. Because that is where we'll start. Because there will be people that will figure out how to explain that to them. And rarely kept forever. We can't use the same measure forever. We gotta evaluate them all the time. And again, it's up to the company to decide how often they're really evaluate. So, this is the number one principle that you want to use when you create measures. A usefulness of a perception measure improves when explained by performance measure. Here it's here. When we talk about websites being user-friendly or easy to navigate, we will measure number of clicks that it takes to get it. And I will give you an example of the website that was created using this bit. Does that make sense? And please interrupt me and ask me a question. So, some of the exercises that we did in order to actually get is, you will have the handout with these exercises. So, voice of the customer to design. We did the exercise, the product was outside. We did the focus groups. We asked them 5 questions. There is a very choreographed process of how we do focus groups. Takes about 60 minutes for a focus group. Very highly choreographed event. And I'm sorry, I'm not walking this way because I'll only this part of the room get that. People are actually amazed at the results and I teach organizations. So when we ask them, we ask 5 questions, only 5 questions, in a very specific way, and then each customer has to vote in a certain way and on all the answers. So it's really true that customer is awesome. So here are the results that we got from doing the focus groups. This is a county in Ireland. And the county want to improve their website, the county website. So anything in blue is what was prioritized by the customers as the most. That's not an order of importance, but just when it was listed and these were the importance. So then we have to create measures. Because we heard from the customers, these are the attributes that they know. How do we measure those? So here's an exercise, how to think about it. So any measure that you will ever create has to have a number. So it always needs to start with a number of a dollar of the amount of 1%. If it doesn't have a number, it's not a measure. Measure is always numeric. So this is the exercise that we usually go through when we look at measurements, and it's done in groups in this again in a specific way. So for the website, after this exercise was done, and it was done both by the workers of the Carolyn and by the users of the website, which are the citizens or residents or whatever we want to call them of the county. By the way, it took them 5 days to figure out how the residents, are they citizens, are they taxpayers, are they, who are they? Because I offered the word prisoners, but they didn't like that. And I said, well, you mandate, you dictate them how much taxes they're gonna pay, and they have no report. So how else do you think I feel when I get my tax bill? I feel like a prisoner because there is nothing I can do about it. So these are the measures. That's what we do. Yeah, don't try to outsource this to IT, because that's not what it's gonna do. If IT is gonna do this, it's gonna be unreadable, because none of you people, none of us will ever understand what they do. So it's got to be done by lay people who speak normal language, not IT, I don't speak IT. So then we do a simple process. I don't know how many of you have done computer. This is similar, but it does not cost very much. And it's done in manual. So the product is the best. We're doing the product design theory based on events. And anything that customers want usually falls into these three categories. These are use categories. 90% of everything the customers say. If there are specific questions, then we make categories. And then all decided. So here are the customer expectations. Remember those that we had listed. And that's the categories that they put in. So now we're asking a simple question. If we are to increase or decrease the number of requests for help, if we decrease the number of requests for help, does it mean the website is intuitive to navigate? Organized, by the way, I think. So we want the questions to decrease. We don't want any questions, then we know that it's organized the way I think, it's intuitive to navigate, easy to find an answer. Visual is simple, doesn't relate to it, so we put 0. So we either put plus or minus. It doesn't matter what we put, whether it's to increase or to decrease, because all of this is counted as 1. If we don't have a 0, it's 1. And it doesn't matter whether it's supposed to go down or supposed to go up. And then we count the number of possible movements. So what do we have here? We have 2 most important product design criteria that need to be used to design or redesign our product. Which is number of pages filled with visuals and number of that's needed to find it. And the county website was redesigned based on this criteria. And county is Lynn County, Iowa. Lynn County. That website, I don't agree with graphics, but again, I live in the South. They live in the Midwest. That's when the original and website there was a giant bear. So, but if you go onto that website, no matter what information you're looking for, you can get it. Every single piece of business you can do with the county or any kind of information you want to find out about the county, you can get it. And that website took prizes and all sorts of competitions and the government service, because the government the government has them. Competitions. So what was the plus and minus on that? So the pluses and minuses is if we are to say number of requests for help, if we increase the number of requests for help, it means it's more intuitive. So we want that number to go down. But if we are percent of pages filled with visuals, the research says that we want as many visuals as possible. Instead of writing words, we want the picture. So it's easier to click on the picture than to read it. So we want those numbers to be up, and some numbers we want to go down. That's what plus means. Okay, let's talk a little bit about surveys. That is a fun topic. As you can see, the slide is different because I had to incorporate two separate presentations into one. And this one will not incorporate my logo up there. So let's 6 slides ago. So these are the keys to success of surveys. You need to be clear about the purpose. You need to understand what is the actual purpose. Not just for the hacker, because we're not talking about the survey, but what are we actually asking? What are we surveying? We need to identify a specific product, because if you're talking specifically about a particular product, you actually get clearer results when you and the person who you are surveying actually talk about this. Because 80% of the time you read the survey and say, all right, what are they asking? Are they asking me about this or about that? And yeah, that'll be very determine which customers and non-customers to include. You don't want to send it to everyone. Want to be strategic about it. Site timing and frequency. Yeah, there are specific about it. And so some things that we want to find out, how do we ask those questions? What is expected of one? If we can ask, how long did you expect to wait, and how long did you actually? And you will see examples of it in just a little bit on how important the way you ask. Level of satisfaction with the product or service, how satisfied. We don't care what they receive. They may receive 100%, but we're satisfied with how it is. Because on the paper, they got all their answers that they wanted, but it's their perception of how they got the answers. You know, in my wife's office, I did tell them that I ran the last medical practice. Well, I could go medical practice and then a receptionist, who is also a part-time advisor. She's a competitor. She is actually going to be 59 in 2 weeks, and she goes on. It was pretty nice. And some people are intimidated by her. Because when she is kind of does one of these and gets out, it's exciting to see. And a lot of people are complaining about it.
Changed, yeah.
And why? Well, did you receive the
So
information?
repeat.
Did you answer
Changes.
everything? Yes,
Got it.
but not the way I wanted to do it. It wasn't formal possible. It was a matter of fact. It was not formal possible, therefore I decided. But again, the reason why she does this is because she has a very clear description of what she needs to do. And when the person tries to cross the boundaries, she puts the wall in. And people don't like that. And place. And that's why some people are dissatisfied. And it was our business decision to say, this is how we want it. Because if we allow people to cross those boundaries, that is. Therefore, we will take negative reviews. We will take negativity, but we will keep saying. Not the sometimes they won't agree. That's a difference. So, different types of measures. Nominal measures. Pounds and millions of dollars. Ordinal methods. In order, sequence, order. Variations. Ranges, fusions, deviations, or sort of combinations, and finally relationship. Range, correlation, scatter plot. The best information we get is from the relationship. The simplest measures of questions, like you can also say questions in the survey, the way they are written. I don't know, nominal are the easiest ones to write, yes or no. Tell me this, you give them 5 choices, check one. Nominal. So how do we write the question where we use the nominal way of asking the question, but get the relationship? How do we do it? So here is the real survey from American Airlines. I'm going to show you the actual survey, but then don't try to read it because it's 40 over 40 over 40 over 40. I typed it out. This is the actual survey. So the first question. In the past 3 months, have you had an occasion to play check luggage? Yes or no? What kind of questions? Right? Simple, yes or no? Because if no, we don't want to know. Because you can't answer what we do. So we'll get a pool of people stuff. Next question. Thinking of the last occasion. How long did it take? What kind of question is it? Nominal, original, or ordinal? Next question. How would you describe the speed of delivery? What kind of question? But again, we're asking about their perception. Why is this important? You will see and reaction. And finally, which of the airports did you go to? And which airport did you do? Simple enough, right? Very simple, sir. But look at what they can get into by doing this very simple, seemingly simple, but it takes months to actually construct the questions the way they are. Okay, let's analyze. Considering the question, what is the purpose of that survey? What is the purpose? What is the product that they are asking you about? They didn't name the product, but they did. They didn't clearly state it, but they didn't name the product. What is it? Luggage delivery. They mentioned it in every question, but they didn't say it in your face. Remember, I told you in the beginning, there will be a question. Product acquisition. They're asking about the product acquisition. Do they know how long it currently takes to actually do the deal? Does American Airlines know how long does it take to deliver the luggage from the plane to the carousel? They ask that question, how do you perceive it? But do they know? Oh, they measure it. Oh my God, they measure it. They will know to the second. How long did it take from that plane to that carousel in every single plane? Because they measure it. But they want to know what you think. Why?
The other thing you would have to consider there is the question is asked, how long did it take from when you arrived? So you have those travelers who speed walk, get up, fly off the plane, speed walk to the carousel, and then they're standing there waiting for 10 minutes, and then you have the customers who stop and get something to drink, stop in the restroom.
Look at the destinations. Look carefully at the destinations. Okay? Just keep that in mind.
Okay.
You may know how long the company want. Yeah, they do because you just answered that.
Yeah, not 45 minutes.
True. Okay, here is what they were driving. It goes back to what we said. When you are arriving to San Juan, you're on vacation. You will stop for margarita. You will stop for tequila. You will make it eventually to the luggage claim, hopefully today. You're on vacation. You arrive to New York City. How long is it gonna take me to get to Manhattan? And I gotta sit and wait here? Realistically, New York is one of the speediest places where you get the luggage. But yet, everybody is dissatisfied with it. Because everybody is. You know that they actually need for different areas that the process. For this area. No, they created almost a labyrinth of how you get out of, how you get out of, the area where the planes are to, how you're gonna get to the luggage. So it takes longer physically to get there. So 90% of the time when you get there, the carousel is already moving. When the carousel is moving, you're fine. It's when the carousel is not moving, that's when you're not fine.
So it's that one.
So, it actually goes back to this one of the famous experiments that were done at, I believe, Macy's. I think it was either Macy's or Jordan Marsh, one of those department stores that installed mirrors in the camera and slowed down the camera. Because it increased the customer satisfaction. Because the ladies that were using the elevator all of a sudden had something to do. There was a mirror. So we talked about measurement principles. As you can see, anything can be measured. What we measure is what we like. So look at your company's product measurements, you will understand. Not what is written, but what they actually. The value of something. So if you even can't measure the customer satisfaction, but if you will attempt to do that, we will increase the value. We manage it, yeah. So, one second. What's measured is full attention. And it's amazing. People say it's important, but we don't measure it. Always find a way to measure it if it's mandated. You know, it's a prime example in healthcare. Oh, no, that's impossible. We can't possibly do this. And then CMS comes out with a mandate. Guess what? The whole country all of a sudden. Creative juices are flowing. Everybody knows. And everybody's methods are different. Very rarely do we have an explicit definition. Again, simple out. I thought there was nobody seeing it. If you do not read it's how much money did we make as a company, because my quarterly bonus depends on that. So damn it, you're gonna produce. That's the measure. Okay. So this is what we're talking about today. And as you know, and as you can see, this is just a tip of an iceberg. Because we can have a 3-day workshop on this. Usually it's about a 2-day thing when I must to work with a company to create others, it's 2 days. Because we have to actually identify something. But we need to understand what we're measuring. Any questions? Concerns? Yes. This is agnostic to really departments. And as I was talking to ladies and gentlemen at this table, I'm currently working with a state attorney's office on crime reduction to and if the state attorney's office involved, if the sheriff's office involved, if the city attorney's office involved, and everybody else and their brother is involved. So it's
What's in the city, right? What are the people that are in the city? The county, the sheriff, the admin,
and community members, and because this is a collaborative process. Because honestly, if you truly want to do something like this, you're also the customers. Because you get a very different perspective of what you're doing. They may be customers from within the organization. It doesn't have to be external customers. They can be from within the organization. But when somebody is calling, pardon my French, on something, it gets attention. And believe me, people will do that. They won't in the first 2-3 hours, but then when the groups become smaller and when they work in small groups, some of the stuff that comes out of small groups, because none of the groups are homogeneous, they are mixed. Ooh, interesting. So for example, just to answer your question, we had trainings in, I work with Minnesota Department of Transportation. And I work with the Department of Parents. Because apparently the Department of Aeronautics in Minnesota, it's the only state in the country where FAA offloads everything to the Department of Aeronautics. So FAA manages all the airports in the country except the states. State of Minnesota, FAA just gives them money, and Department of Aeronautics in the state of Department of Transportation, state of Minnesota, manages all the airports because they have no money. Because all the communities in Minnesota have airports and so they want to make sure they sorry, over 100. And FAA just doesn't have capacity. So they just keep money to. And the Department of Aeronautics needed a strategic plan. And while we were doing that, you know, HR got involved in something, so they were sitting on some of the trainings, and the HR said, hey, why are they doing this and we're not? We want that too. So they started doing training as well. And then we got to the point where HR started asking questions. And the Department of Aeronautics started giving them answers. And HR got very offended by the answers. And the Department of Aeronautics got very offended by HR. And finally, they had a powwow in the closed room. There were a lot of yelling and screaming and cursing. But finally, they realized that if they actually want to get out, then they needed to work together, so they did. And then they did the joint presentation. And as a result of the joint presentation, HR was saying, we don't know what business we're in. The most common answer we got from people is, don't get into our business. Allow us to work. And for HR to actually say that, there was a lot of realization, a lot of soul searching. But that was the outcome of that meeting. So HR actually did 3 projects to be able to help, because HR usually is viewed as compliance police. The police, you see somebody from HR walking into your department, you have this oh crap man, who is getting fired. Because that is the perception of HR. But they actually walked in because they wanted to ask the question, how can we help? You know, it's like in the 50s. We are from the government, how can we help? We're here to help. It's one of those. So butts in the seats could be anybody, could be anything. Because in that particular case, HR was an innocent bystander that got sucked in to the process. Because they got a money for it. Because they're compliant. So, and because of that, they actually did 3 projects within the Minnesota Department of Transportation in HR alone. And guess what? They were able to actually start hiring people that were right for the job. And the reason why is because when they evaluated their hiring process, they took 128 work days on average from the moment position is identified to the moment that the person starts in orientation. And if you need a civil engineer, I'm sorry, the civil engineer is not going to sit and wait 120 work days to be hired. They're going to go elsewhere for better pay and better benefits. And they have no idea because they were thinking how we got help. And then it they react. So it could be anybody with an organization, and the bigger the mass, because when it's done within one department, again, you have this frequency notion of the problem. But if you do something in IT, that's the most dangerous place. Because they will create a monster that the whole company will be looking for the next 30 years. Because IT decided that without any external, like, do we really do that? And we just have, you know, that's one of those things. So we don't want to as many people as possible in this particular process because we don't try. Any other questions?
Good. All right. Thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate it.